Good evening. I'm going to call the special meeting of the Governing Board on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021 to order at 6 p.m. Please, what B is, I apologize, Mrs. Taylor, new agenda item? Okay, I'm going to roll call, let the record reflect all board members are here. And if you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Everybody vote? Did everybody record their
It
votes?
didn't come up. Okay.
Please record her vote. So our first order of business tonight will be an update on Las Brisas. And that is Dr. Galligan. Apologize, thank you.
President O'Brien, members of the board, and Dr. Finch. This evening, we bring an update about Las Brisas to you. We're going to talk just a little bit about why make some changes. What could that programming be? The school's journey to date and potential enrollment impacts. You will notice on this slide at the top chart, attendance with no boundary changes. This current year, Las Brisas has 741
Dr. Galligan,
children.
I'm sorry, we're having trouble hearing you. Will you pull your mic closer? Thank you.
All right, is that better? Okay. You will notice in the top chart that this year Las Brisas has 741 children, and this chart is reflected from the demographer's most recent report. And the top chart is also attendance with no boundary changes. If you look over the next 9 years after this year, Las Brisas is slated to decrease and decline with just about 200 fewer children. The bottom chart is attendance with the proposed boundary changes with elementary 32. And again, we start at 741 children. And at the end of 9 years, we are about 282 children fewer. So the long and the short of it is Las Brisas is a declining enrollment school with or without boundary changes. The program considerations we are bringing to you is around gifted programming. What you will see here are our proposal for Las Brisas. We would bring an early childhood gifted programming to the school next fall in 2022, opening a gifted preschool for 4-year-old children. Information went out to parents through Facebook just this past week. We've had over 1,200 hits, and already one parent has signed up for testing. We would open up the following year in 2023, Bright Child Kindergarten. We currently have 2 Bright Child Kindergartens, one at Canyon Springs and one at Highland Lakes right now. We would ask that we expand the Renaissance Highly Gifted programming to a 3rd school, which would be Las Brisas, as a school within a school model, similar to what we have at both Canyon Springs and Highland Lakes. That would occur either next fall in 2022 or waiting until the fall of 2023. We will need to see what the impact is on boundary changes on the enrollment at Las Brisas. When we make that change, we would start with multi-age grades 1-2 and grades 3-4 during the first year. This is very similar to how we opened up both Renaissance at Esperanza before it moved to Highland Lakes, and then Renaissance at Canyon Springs. The focus at this particular school would be on global studies and looking at the population around Las Brisas, and then, of course, our TSMC families that will be moving in. Along with global studies, there would be a focus on language. We would expand Renaissance programming in either the fall of 23 or 24, just depending on when we started that initial expansion. And then beyond that, consideration of expanding on-site gifted programming to that particular school. Now you may say to yourself, well, why in the heck would we have identified gifted? Las Brisas has a long history of having a large gifted population, but even more so, the principal of Las Brisas, Mara Kurash, has really been in development over the last 3 years in providing a foundation for gifted programming. What you can see here is that she has focused her teacher development on gifted education practices and strategies K-6. Her school is a full school gifted cluster school and cohort model. That was started in 2019-20. What that means is that she and her teachers have made a commitment to be trained in gifted education and gifted strategies so that not only kids who have been identified gifted benefit, but all children benefit from those strategies. In her gifted staffing, at least one, if not two teachers in every grade level K-6 are either endorsed with their gifted endorsement or in the process of getting their gifted endorsement. In addition, the school has been working on problem-based learning, which is a full school look at how we can critically think about problems and solve those problems. So Mara and her campus have been working towards this evolution on their campus for the past 3 years. And as I mentioned before, they have had historically a very high gifted population. What you'll see here is that in this current school year, the current number of gifted students at that school is 120. The current number of gifted contacts is 200. And just to give you a bit of explanation about what contacts are, if a student is identified in reading, that's one contact. If they're identified in math, that's two contacts. So when we think about a single student, that student could potentially have two specific contacts. Some students only have one in either reading and or math. There are 18 students currently who would qualify for Renaissance at either Highland Lakes or Canyon Springs right now, which means they've met the cut score for the highly gifted academy. The impact on other schools and programs, because we know anytime we open a new program, whether it's a highly gifted academy or it is a Renaissance, a Mandarin immersion, a Spanish immersion, anything like that, that there is potential impact on surrounding schools. Right now, there are no students from Las Brisas who have left that school to attend either Highland Lakes or Canyon Springs. So that population tends to stay in their area, and they're happy with their school. There are 118 students who qualify right now to attend a Renaissance program, whether that would be Highland Lakes or Canyon Springs. As I said, many of our families that live in that area are very happy and satisfied and don't want to travel that far to have their child go to one of the other the gifted Renaissance academies. The students who attend those 118, you can see the list of schools there, and they're fairly close to Las Brisas or easily accessible to parents. And as I mentioned before, our Las Brisas teachers have been working towards getting their gifted endorsements, and minimally one, if not two, at each grade level already have that endorsement or are working on it. When we look at potential enrollment impact, the increased enrollment at Las Brisas and Deer Valley is, of course, what we would like to see. We have a marketing plan that is based on, first, the zip codes that surround Las Brisas. So Las Brisas is a zip code, but then all of the surrounding zip codes. And we've identified all of the charter schools and private schools that are in those attendance, those zip codes. And if you can imagine, there are 28 charter and private schools in the surrounding zip code areas of Las Brisas. We truly believe that if we were to open up a highly gifted academy for Renaissance, highly gifted children, that we would be able to draw from some of those charter schools that are in that area. And then when we think about our own families, the Deer Valley families, Las Brisas and those surrounding campuses have large gifted populations. And what I mean by that is, in general, our campuses, our elementary campuses, receive a 0.8 or a 1.0 FTE, full-time equivalent teacher for gifted education on their campus. The schools that surround them, West Wing, Terramar, Stetson Hills, and Las Brisas, have 1.2 FTE, which means their gifted populations and their identification is high enough that we would add additional staffing to those 4 schools. If parents felt that their child would do well in a third Renaissance Academy that would be in their neighborhood, that would be a draw, and we could shift staffing potentially from those schools that have 1.2 FTE. In addition, when we look at increasing that enrollment in Las Brisas and Deer Valley, that pool from close charter and private schools is right around the corner. If you've driven up in that area, there's Candeo, Basis, Glendale Preparatory, and Bayer are just some of those charter and private schools. And as I mentioned, in the zip codes we would be targeting, there are 28 that we would be pulling from potentially. And then when we would pull from, so this one's a little tricky, because we never want to pull students from another school district. That we have a gentleman or a woman's agreement that we just don't do that. However, we know because Peoria School District has not successfully passed their M&O over the last couple of times, that they have done some changes in their gifted programming. And Deer Valley has been the beneficiary of teachers who have had their classrooms closed and parents who have had decreased services for gifted education. So we have, I believe, anywhere from 3 to 5 teachers who have come over into our own gifted programs to teach. And then we have also had parents who have open enrolled into West Wing, Terramar, Hillcrest, Legend Springs, and Highland Lakes, and of course, our Renaissance programs from Peoria. And even though we would not want to benefit from their challenges, that is something else that perhaps would be a draw for parents at Las Brisas. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our TSMC Family Impact have already reached out to the district to see what do you have available for high-achieving children and gifted learners. So we know that there is some interest there as well. So for our update for Las Brisas, this is a pretty high level where we would like to go. But I would say that Mara and her team and Adam Lanningham, who oversees our gifted services, have worked closely together to identify a programming opportunity that would draw children to Las Brisas and that we would be able to expand upon long term. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mrs. Reed?
Well, I know that this is a discussion that we'll continue to have over the next couple of months, but in speaking to Mr. Lanningham previously, I know that he is a champion of 1.5 in his department, right? Or is it now 2-ish? And so I just, as he is, and you've done amazing things with the Gifted Services Department, the expansion into high school at O'Connor as well. So I just want to make sure that if this is the direction that the district is going, that our Gifted Services Department is staffed enough to be able to support the teachers and the schools, and we can make sure that Mr. Lanningham stays sane in the same at the same time. So you just want to make sure that we're thinking about that too.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Paperman?
So it sounds that we're trying to promote the district since we have X amount of charter schools in the surrounding area. So we want to have programs that families can look into and enroll their children into those programs.
President O'Brien, Ms. Paperman, that is correct. We already draw highly gifted children from some of the charters to Highland Lake specifically. So that is already the case. And we feel in that particular area, having the third Renaissance program at Las Brisas in a very fairly close proximity would draw even more.
Okay, so not every school in Deer Valley School District have programs that you have discussed. Just certain schools will have them.
President O'Brien, Ms. Paperman, each of our schools provides gifted education for children who have been identified gifted. However, there are only 2 highly gifted Renaissance academies, one at Highland Lakes and one at Canyon Springs.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Ordway?
So, Mara, you already have this atmosphere going. Your staff, your students are pretty much immersed in it. And now, Adam, you've been working closely with them. So the transition would be big, but not, oh my God, look, we're going to do gifted at here in a Renaissance. So that's good. And yes, we don't like to take students from other districts, but the reason why in Arizona we have all of these options is so we can provide places the best fit for a kid. So good work, and I really look forward to seeing how this comes along, if this is the direction we go. And I just had one question. When you talked about global studies, just real quick, just go over it, because I know that you don't have that all set in stone, but I find that interesting to make sure that we have global studies going on so our children can be aware of everywhere other than just, our state. So does somebody want to throw that out?
Mara.
President O'Brien, Mrs. Ordway, members of the board, global studies would be tied to the Arizona state standards and tie with also some problem and project-based learning to really delve into, I'm trying to think of how to describe it, looking outside of Arizona and the day-to-day of our students here in Glendale. And one of the examples that I always think of is we think of something simple like simple machines, which is part of 5th grade science standards. And then as we study that, start to study some of the simple machines around the world as part of our global studies. Because we know, for example, vending machines here look very different than they do in Korea and Japan and South America, Central America, and so on. And so that's part of the global studies where it's anchored with our Arizona state standards, but it gives exposure and experiences to students to explore and grow and learn about life outside of Arizona and day-to-day occurrences and what culture is like around the world.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I know I put you on the spot, but you did really well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation and information this evening.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I would make a motion that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve new elementary boundaries to include elementary number 32.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Miglerino?
President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch.
Do we want,
Okay. I apologize. We're going to go to speakers first. I apologize, Mr.
I know, Jim,
Miglerino.
you want to go, but you have to wait. So I'm going to, I'm just going to say all 4 of your names if you'd line up in that order, and then I'm going to read the admonishment. Jennifer Marshall. Sempath, and I can't say your last name, but Sam, that works for me too. Matthew Dawson. And Steve. What? Sean? Well, I think there's only one Steve. Okay, so the board invites public comment on the district business in general and on any agenda item in specific. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Everybody has their 3 minutes because there's 4 of you. To accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten speakers' times. Vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disrespecting employees by name will not be allowed. The governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or request a future agenda item.
Please state your name for the record and then your time.
Jennifer Marshall. I live in the Alora Vita neighborhood at 75th and Jomax, and I have 2 children in our district who are in the 3rd and 6th grade at Terramar. I spoke at the last board meeting on behalf of the Alora Vita community to voice our concerns with the proposed boundary changes. At the time, you didn't have the data needed to make an informed decision, so the vote was delayed until today. Since then, we hosted 2 community meetings with other concerned Alora Vita residents, many are here today, handed out flyers door to door outlining the impacts of these changes to every Alora Vita household, sent numerous emails to the district, and we've collected over 400 signatures on our petition to delay the vote until better options are provided. We have gone great lengths to make it clear the Alora Vita community is not willing to go to Las Brisas, and if option 3D is approved, a majority of families will attend different schools through open enrollment. This means that Las Brisas will not get the population it needs from Alora Vita to stay viable, and the Alora Vita community will be divided across various schools and lose bus transportation for no good reason. With the new data published last night showing the past, present, and projected enrollment numbers for each neighborhood, there is a new option that should be considered that meets the desired objectives to keep Las Brisas viable, avoid overcrowding at Terramar, and create new boundaries that best align with our district's guiding principles. This new option, which we're calling option 3E, is the same as option 3D, but it reassigns the Eagle Preserve neighborhood, which is east of Alora Vita, to Las Brisas and allows Alora Vita to remain at Terramar. Ultimately, we do not wish any neighborhoods to be reassigned and would prefer to have the existing Terramar school boundaries remain intact, with accommodations made to address any potential overcrowding in the future. However, if that's not an option, and one of the communities that go to Terramar today have to be reassigned to Las Brisas, it should be the Eagle Preserve community because they are closer in proximity, they have a higher enrollment population to help keep Las Brisas viable. Terramar and Las Brisas neighborhoods would get to stay together with contiguous boundaries. Eagle Preserve's commute via 55th Avenue is much safer than Alora Vita crossing 3 major roads at Jomax, 67th, and Happy Valley. And overall, it would be significantly less impactful to move an established aging neighborhood because those children would switch schools fewer times than Alora Vita children who would be switching schools 4 to 5 times within 5 years. This is not a matter of parents resisting change. This is a matter of choosing an option that's best supported by data and serves in the best interest of our children and our community. For all these reasons, please consider the new option 3A or other alternatives to keep Alora Vita at Terramar. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker will please step up, say your name for the record, and then your time will begin.
Good evening, board. My name is Sam Mahankali. I'm resident of Alora Vita, and I support whatever Jennifer mentioned. I'm from the same community. So my daughter, we just recently moved to Alora Vita, and then before moving there, we, obviously I had to, when I was investing in the property, obviously I had to look for the good school. And when I was searching, I saw Terramar, which is, a pretty good rating, and it's very close to the community, which got us very much excited. And then we bought the property, we moved in, and our daughter, she's all, she's pretty new to, currently she's going to Sierra Verde, but we moved into Alora Vita just to make sure she has good school. And now she is in, kind of jeopardy because the school that is assigned, that would be, in consideration, is a little far. And, the existing Terramar is just one main road away, like, Jomax, once we cross it, yeah, all the footpaths, as mentioned in the DV, USD district website as well, the footpaths leading to the school. And yes, Terramar is very near. And I didn't realize, and I bought another property in the same community, thinking that it's a new school, it's the same school, And right now I'm in jeopardy. I'm kind of thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want to send my daughter, a little bit longer, distance when compared to Terramar. So I've been taking her the ride, and I was showing her the school, and all of a sudden I realized that this news came up. I was volunteering along with Jennifer and other Alarovita residents, and there are few people who are of same age as my daughter. They are all excited to go to Terramar, and this leaves us in jeopardy, and we have no clue what to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. You state your name for the record, and then your time will begin.
Matthew Dawson. Good evening. I'm a parent of 2 children who attend Terramar. I respectfully request that Elora Vita be allowed to remain at Terramar. This can be achieved by option 3A or by grandfathering Elora Vita for a certain period of time. A new option of 3E may also be considered where Eagle Preserve is assigned to Las Brisas. I understand there is opposition to this, as we are also opposed. But in all fairness, this option will provide more students for Las Brisas, and Eagle Preserve is closer to that school. In a short amount of time, I have collected 21 more signatures from registered voters and parents opposed to Elora Vita being moved from Terramar. Both neighborhoods could stay at Terramar by option 3A or 3E with the grandfather clause. Data from previous presentations and additional demographic data that I analyzed show that Terramar is not expected to be over capacity. The new E3 school also helps this issue, and the expansion of programs at Las Brisas will also help. Projections that examine this are with residents' data, not accounting for actual trends. Actual enrollment trends are about 15% less on average, due to options outside of DVUSD and declining enrollment due to COVID. Either way, both neighborhoods will seek open enrollment, and Terramar will remain at its capacity despite these efforts. As a registered nurse, I am concerned with issues related to these changes. These are detailed in the reports that I submitted to you. As a community member, I am unhappy that many children will soon have to deal with these new changes in an already difficult time during this pandemic. Finally, as a parent, I'm sad that my children will soon have to leave the school they love due to changes with no clear benefit to the community. I hope that a middle ground can be reached, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Please state your name for the record, and you're welcome to use the taller microphone.
Sean. I'm a resident in the Elora Vita community with 2 children currently attending Terramar. I'm here to request that you folks consider an option that would allow the children in the Elora Vita community to remain at Terramar. Under the currently proposed options that reassigns Elora Vita kids to Las Brisas, our children will be attending a school that is at least 4 miles away from their home. This will present transportation challenges such as increasing the commute time and increase the likelihood of traffic accidents commuting to and from school. It doesn't make sense to move Elora Vita kids from Terramar when we are actually closer than some of the other communities within the boundary. Additionally, this could require children in the Elora Vita community to change schools a number of times within approximately 5 years. Many of us are new to this area and have already switched schools in the last year or 2. Changing schools too frequently may have lasting effects on children and could affect their development and ability to build relationships. I ask that you instead consider the option 3E that has been proposed by the members of our community. This option proposes that 1A, a community closer in proximity to Las Brisas, such as Eagle Preserve, would be reassigned instead of Elora Vita. 2, allow both Eagle Preserve and Elora Vita remain at Terramar, or grandfather in existing Terramar students in Elora Vita to remain at Terramar for the upcoming school year until the district finds a better long-term solution for the Elora Vita community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, Mr. Miglerino.
President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch. We've covered much of the information in multiple settings. So just in the interest of time, in case there's some more questions that the board might have, I'm going to kind of go through the presentation quickly. You've seen it twice before. So I'm going to just hit the highlights for the new information that I've provided in the presentation itself. We kind of went through the process. This is what we published initially in terms of the timeline that has been altered with the meeting tonight. We've shared what the statute is. There is a provision that is highlighted here that does require us, unless this new law gets challenged, does require us to give some sort of priority status if capacity is available at a school, if somebody did attend a school in which there was a boundary change. So this was part of the budget bill, and that has been challenged constitutionally. But this particular section has not been challenged. But so this is the law as it stands today, but it does not guarantee transportation. As we have spoken before, that is something certainly the board could consider as part of a decision that they could include. This is your governing board policy. It basically mirrors its policy JC. Here are the guiding principles that have been referenced already this evening. These are generic guiding principles that we use whenever we're considering a boundary change, and they're not designated. The comment I'll make here, and a little bit of editorial just in full disclosure, they're not established to be able to be specific to an area. They're established to be able to look at a more universal or comprehensive view of the boundary changes that we're considering at the time. We did mention that there would be some challenges with this boundary. Everything from student population changes due to the pandemic to choice options to maximizing the space at the available schools. And including opening the new school as a K-6 and expanding it as a K-7. This was the demographer's projections that led us to believe that we needed to build Elementary 32. So we were over capacity at Stetson Hills. We were projected to be over capacity at Terramar. We're not quite there yet. Again, these were projections for the 21 and 22 year, and we were over 90% of capacity at West Wing Elementary School. So based on this, as well as new developments in the area, we felt that the need to build Elementary 32. The board at the last meeting asked for the neighborhoods near Elementary 32. This is really more as a reference guide. I created this, so I'll take full ownership for any information that's contained on this map. Some of the neighborhoods are known as something different than what their subdivision name is, so I've tried to provide that in both instances. So this is just, I guess, for reference purposes. I've provided a larger version of this at your seat in case we need to reference it in the future. This is additional information that our demographer put together yesterday. This is the student enrollment information from, I think it was from 16-17, yes, from the 2016-17 year, the current year, the 21-22 school year, and then a 5-year projection for each, I'll just call it study grid is what we call it, area that we have, a planning area that our demographer uses. And so this gives us some snapshot of where some of the student populations were, where they are today, and where we expect them to be in 5 years. And then there was some discussion at the last meeting about the progression of the boundary options. We did share our recommendation last time for option 3D, which was the 4th iteration. I'll just go through these quickly. Option 3A was the first option that we developed. It really was essentially taking Eagle Preserve and assigning it to the new elementary school and allowing Alavita to remain at Terramar. And it really didn't provide an increase in student enrollment at Las Brisas. And we heard early in the process that the Eagle Preserve parents that attended wanted and requested to remain at Terramar. So from that, we developed option 3B, which got much more complicated. And that actually bisected the Stetson Valley neighborhood. So part of that neighborhood became or continued to remain at the Las Brisas school, and part of it would go to the new elementary school. And it really, really did not, it caused so many changes that I don't think anybody was happy with the changes. In this particular option, Alavita would have been reassigned to Copper Creek, which, and the Sonora Mountain Ranch and Pyramid Peak neighborhoods would have been reassigned to the new elementary school. So there's too many changes in this particular option, which crafted option 3C. And again, there really was no compelling reason to reassign Eagle Preserve. Really what it is, the difference between option 3C and 3D is Eagle Preserve would also be reassigned to Las Brisas, or excuse me, to Eagle Preserve would be reassigned to Elementary 32. And there really wasn't a need to make that change. And again, the community asked us, the Eagle Preserve community asked us to remain at Terramar. So option 3D really became the most simplified way to balance the enrollment at all the available schools by making one change to one neighborhood, the Alavita neighborhood, and reassigning them to Las Brisas. They're currently assigned to the Terramar school, as you've heard. So that was the progression of how we got to the option that we are recommending. This option does, without this option, we would anticipate Terramar would grow to well over 1,000 students, which would be a challenge. We've had over 1,000 students at the school before, just in full disclosure, but that was with a portable classroom that no longer on the campus. And it also would leave the Las Brisas campus, in our opinion, underutilized without the change. The rest of the slides I have are really just the boundaries themselves. And, you know, if you care to see the maps, we've looked at this in great detail. The only additional information that we provided is we did look at, and it gets a little bit confusing, our demographer likes to look at where the students actually live and where they're projected to attend. So this is their the reside data for students currently, and then below is option 3D. And this is the projection of where we think they might attend based on historical open enrollment trends, which I need to disclose is difficult to predict, especially when you open a new school, because we do get we do see a lot of changes in terms of choice when we open a new school, and that has been true with all of the schools that I've opened over my 16-year career here with the district. So other than that, this was the information that just highlighted where what areas were changing with our recommendation. We mentioned the open enrollment process throughout the process itself, and we are now at a new step, which is hopefully formal board consideration of the boundary this evening. We did get 8 more emails to the boundaries email, even though we said we were accepting input through the 3rd of November. We've received additional emails. I've met with the folks from Alavita. I've emailed many of them as well and provided additional information. We just could not come up with a better solution that would not only provide for a solution that would make sure that there wasn't overcrowding at the Terramar campus, that would also include being able to balance some of the enrollment with the Las Brisas campus. And so for that reason, we are continuing to recommend option 3D. It is the board's decision to make in terms of the boundary, so you guys have the authority collectively as a board to make that decision. So if there's any interest in revising the boundary. We could certainly consider that. Some of the requests, I don't have a 3E map to share with you. I've shared all the other options previously with the board. But the 3E option, if I understood it correctly as I was trying to take a note, would be just to relocate Eagle Preserve to Las Brisas. There's currently about 152 students in the Eagle Preserve neighborhoods, and projected to be about 150 5 years from now. And so it is accurate to say that if you make that change, there would be 51 more students that would attend Las Brisas right away. But there's 102 students in Alameda currently, projected to be 248 in 5 years. So it would also be important to note that if option E, as I understood it, were to be considered, although it would generate more students initially, over the long term, the Alameda neighborhood, because it is not fully developed at this point, would generate even more students over the next 5 years. You could also consider to just leave the Terramar boundary as it is, but again, that would cause the Terramar campus to be well over 1,000 students based on the projections that we have. And that would even further shrink the student population at the Las Brisas campus. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Mr. Miglerino. Mrs. Ordway?
Jim, have we come up with a process, or Dr. Finch, when we are considering the move to add the 7 and then the 8?
President O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, are you talking about to the new elementary 32? We don't have a timeline. I think that's going to be predicated on additional developments in the area. What I've told people that have inquired, I think that's going to be sooner as opposed to later. So I would say that's probably within a 3-year window that we would need to open or build the building that we are not currently building at elementary 32 that could house the 7th and 8th grade.
Thank you.
Mrs. Reed?
Is there any agreement with the Alora Vita home builders as far as like a rooftop fee, since it was previously zoned for Terramar, like how we did with the Lennar community up in Sonoran Foothills?
President O'Brien, Ms. Reed, yes, there is a voluntary assistance fee agreement, but it has more to do with the original land purchase there's actually 2 parcels involved with Alameda. One of them is in our district, one of them is in the Peoria School District boundaries. And the original State Land Department agreement had a future high school site on the parcel in our district. So the high school was a 60-acre parcel on the corner of 75th Avenue and Joe Max. And for some reason, when the State Land Department wrote that language, they put a trigger clause in the agreement that said that that agreement or that reservation would expire within 10 years. So the Alameda development was bought by American Patriot near the 2008 year, right before the recession. They held on to it throughout the recession, did not build any homes. The 10-year clock expired, and they reverted the agreement for the future high school site, and they actually built homes on those 60 acres instead of providing a future high school site for us. So as part of that agreement, we did negotiate a voluntary assistance agreement with Alameda. That is also causing some of the issues with the planning, is because we got 60 acres of more single-family homes out of the parcel in our district. that would have otherwise been a high school that wouldn't have yielded additional students if it's since it's now being developed as homes.
And what is the voluntary assistance fee?
It's $750 per rooftop.
And has that money already been allocated for improvements at Terramar or no?
It has not.
Okay.
It has not been spent at all.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Lanningham, maybe this is a question, or Dr. Galligan. Since I wasn't on the board when the Renaissance program started at Canyon Springs and Highland Lakes, how long does it take in order to get a program up and running to the point where it is full and has a wait list like both of those programs do?
President O'Brien, Ms. Reed, in our proposal, we would open a combined 1, 2, 3, 4 classroom, 2 classrooms in that first year, and then the following year open a 5, 6. If student enrollment were to increase enough, then those would break apart and become individual classrooms at grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in our mind, 2 years. When we opened up at Highland Lakes, we added a middle school component to that, and we added a grade level each year. And that is fairly typical if you think about the immersion, the language immersion schools. We open a grade level at a time. We usually start with 2 or 3 grade levels and then add from there.
Thank you. And then I know in the presentation that you gave, there was, depending upon how the boundary vote went tonight, there were 2 potential start dates. So if we chose not to change Alora Vita to Las Brisas, then would that mean that the Renaissance program would be able to start in fall of 22?
President O'Brien, Ms. Reed, the goal here would be to start either in 22, depending on enrollment, or 23 if that extending it an additional year was needed. So we are ready to go in 2022 if it's the board's desire.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Fisher?
Okay. I go to church right there, and I train for my half marathons right where we're talking about. And we have drove through this area multiple times in the last couple weeks just to get a really good idea of what this looks like. I can tell you no one who was in my car at any point in time could understand why on earth we would ever make this kind of a decision. I was asked if we had a mobile or space for a mobile to put. I don't know if it's just me or anyone else, but to cross 67th Avenue right there by Joe Max is a death wish. And it has been for years. So to want to transport kids that direction past Terramar and on past down to Las Brisas, I can't seem to make any logic of it. So that's kind of what I would like to, if there's any way anyone could make logic of this boundary change. The last time I saw a boundary change or attempted boundary change that was this irresponsible was in 2014 when the board refused to do the high school boundaries because the governing board members did not want his kids impacted. And that was compounded by a superintendent who said they would not address boundary changes until they got their selected board elected. So to me, with that history, all I think of is politics. Or somebody knows somebody in a neighborhood. We see repeatedly, well, we're not choosing this one because they asked. Okay, well, we have a room full of individuals who have asked. And this is a serious impact to children. you drive that area, you look at serious safety concerns. And yes, if we're going to transport them, great. Has anybody drove a bus through that area? Because my Subaru through that area, I got to dodge, bob and weave. It's that one stretch right there at 67th Avenue and Joe Max. It's concerning. I would like, if there's any way you can make any sense that I'm not seeing. Now, I understand that we need more enrollment at Las Brisas. We're concerned that there's going to be too much at Terramore. So at what point do we think we're going to hit that 1,000 at Terramore? And what is the possibility of considering a portable or some sort of expansion there on Terramore? When I was asked the question, I said I didn't know. I hadn't been on that campus in a long time. I didn't even know if there was land or space to do such a thing. 5 years from now, I mean, we're talking about all this grand expansion in the North Valley, which is affecting the entire state with water consumption, but that's a different point. But we're talking about massive expansion. In 5 years, we may be planning another school in that area already. As I looked through all this, all I could think of is we're building a school in the wrong spot. We decided to build one in the wrong spot, and now we're going to put children at risk for a political purpose. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not politics. Maybe somebody in that neighborhood doesn't have a friend that's on the board or works as administrator or something. And I don't know, that could just be, but I'm trying to think of any logical reason. So if you could tell me when we'd hit the 1,000, is there a potential for the portable use? I guess that would help at least. And then if you can make any logic out of this, I would appreciate it.
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher. So yeah, several questions that I'll attempt to answer. We would expect the Terramore campus to be over 1,000 students within 3 to 4 years. And could be sooner based on the build out at Alavita. You also made the comment about have we driven the area? The answer is yes. In fact, we drive the area every day. We run a bus up to Alavita and transport those students to Terramore on a bus. I agree with you that crossing Joe Max is a challenge. We're not asking anybody to cross Joe Max. We would pick the students up in the neighborhood and then transport them on the bus. We would just not drop them off at Terramore. We would just continue on to Las Brisas. That is the plan. So that bus runs in that area every school day. And the question about the portable, yes, we've had a 2-classroom portable on the campus before. And it was a leased portable, so we let the lease expire and the portable was removed because it was no longer needed at the time. And that would require us getting a building permit from the city of Peoria. The last time we did, the city of Peoria did have some concerns about traffic on Happy Valley Road. I don't know that that has improved for both the Terramore's campus as well as for the Happy Valley Charter School that's just to the west of Terramore's campus. But I have not spoken with the city of Peoria about any concerns that they would have. As Ms. Reed did mention, we could utilize the voluntary assistance fee from the Alavita community as proceeds to be able to expand the Terramore campus. That would be an option, but we haven't collected all that money. That money gets collected at the closing, so it comes in, it trickles in over time. So we don't. It's not like one check that was written to us because we have varying arrangements with those voluntary assistance agreements. And then in reference to where the new school is being built, that school site was identified back in like 2003 when Stetson Valley was first, conceptualized. We originally started to build the school in 2008, and the recession happened, and so we withdrew our efforts at that time. And we think that that school is ideally located due to conversations that we're having about future development that's going to happen north of that school site. So it may not be evident today, but we think in the very near future it's going to be more evident, and that's why we think we're going to need to add the 7th and 8th grade building and grade levels to that campus in the near future.
What was the permit fee, or what is the standard permit fee? And I know I rent a portable for my work and about $5,000 a month. So what would the portable fee be for Deer Valley? I mean, because it would be a different type of portable, I'm sure.
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher, I would not want to hazard a guess at what the permit fees would be for adding a permit. We have not constructed anything in the city of Peoria since the portable I'm referencing. And before that, it was building West Wing in 2005. So I think too much has changed for me to hazard a guess. It's not the fee that I think would be the challenge. I think it's getting their approval to make a campus bigger when we already create an issue out on a major thoroughfare being Happy Valley Road. The traffic backs up on the road at the beginning of the school day and at dismissal time as well. So they may require us to make some other modifications beyond just adding the portable, is my point.
I would understand that, but we're not adding kids, we're retaining the kids we currently have there. I think that would be an argument that could be made for Peoria, that we're not adding additional children that are causing an additional backup. We're putting the ones there. My concern is that we, just driving through it, we're moving things around. We've noted that there are 28 additional, or 28 charters, some with very significant names to them. We're also, just right around the corner is Frontier Elementary in Peoria District. I fear that we are actually, it appears to be that we are focused on a neighborhood that we're going to end up not meeting our goal of additional enrollment, because the families of this neighborhood are going to say, I'm not driving past 4 schools to go to mine, or 3 schools to go to mine. I'm going to find a charter. I'm going to go to Frontier. I'm going to homeschool. I'm going to micro school. So if our goal is just driving enrollment, I'm concerned that this may not be the best option. And I've looked at the other options as far as, and I'm not trying to pick on whomever lives in Eagle Preserve that requested to stay, but it would at least make some logical sense in when you look at geographically where it sits. And even if you are busing the kids from that neighborhood, you don't necessarily have to go on 67th. You could go straight down. There's other pathways. I just can't make sense of it. I don't know. I'll see if any of the other board members have something that'll make it sense for me.
Mr. Miglerino, on the map you provided us with the names, and thank you for that. It's much appreciated. The purple section that has the numbers 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. Oh, sorry, I found AKA Eagle Preserve. I apologize. I was looking for Eagle Preserve. So Eagle Preserve is only number 7, or is it all of that purple area?
President O'Brien, this is, as I tried to allude to earlier, not all of the neighborhoods are known by their subdivision name. So I've tried to provide the subdivision name and then what they're commonly known as. So I would say that Eagle Preserve is pretty much the number 7 as it's represented on that map. I can switch back to this one as well. But there are smaller neighborhoods that are, tangential to the actual Eagle Preserve. They're not known as Eagle Preserve. They are smaller subdivisions. But in our study grid, those numbers are all included in one.
And so for the purpose of this discussion, that purple is being referred to as Eagle Preserve. Is that fair?
I'm not sure. If you're asking if that's what is considered in option 3E, I did not create that option, so I don't know the answer to that.
Based on the student, I guess, so then the other map that shows the population numbers, 154 for that purple area.
That's correct. This purple area includes all of those subdivisions.
It does include all of those subdivisions.
And the 150 students would be not exclusive to Eagle Preserve, but to all of those neighborhoods in that slender purple area.
Okay. And that 3E was submitted by Ms. Marshall, is that correct? Mr. Miglerino, do you recall?
President O'Brien submitted.
Or not submitted to, it was a suggestion from her, is that correct?
That's the note that I have
The note you have?
from the comment,
Okay.
but I have not seen,
Okay,
nor have we created a map.
She didn't, yeah, we didn't get a map. So, Ms. Marshall, could you please go to the microphone so I could ask you a question, please? So for purposes of this discussion, are you referring to the purple area that has, I'm not sure which map's up there right now, the numbers 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9 in it as Eagle Preserve in your?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Could you please put your microphone on?
Isn't that the same as one of the other options?
I do believe it was one of the options that Mr. Miglerino, I would have to go back, but just one second. Let me go back to the option page.
So President O'Brien, I didn't quite hear, but option 3A did have all of those neighborhoods in and around Eagle Preserve going to elementary 32, if that was the comment.
Correct. So option 3A does provide, it does provide for Eagle Preserve to be reassigned from Terramar to E32. And my understanding when I look at the data on the maps that Mr. Miglerino provided, in Jim font, I'm going to add, that the numbers, there's quite a delta in the number of students. So while the difference between the Alora Vita neighborhood and the Eagle Preserve neighborhood that we're going to call it for now is 50 students. There are 50 more in the Eagle Preserve right now based on the key. But in 5 years from now, the difference between those two communities is 100 students the opposite way. So the the Eagle Preserve neighborhood would reduce by a few students, while the Alora Vita neighborhood increases to 248 from 102. So from a data perspective, when you're looking at the long-term viability and the student numbers, and given where the student numbers are today and are predicted to go for Terramar, as Mr. Miglerino outlined on the page with the options, it doesn't provide the viable student enrollment that they're looking for long term. So it was an option assessed, as were the other ones, and I'm seeing those numbers right here as well. So thank you for that clarification, Ms. Marshall. So the current capacity at Terramar is approximately, Mr. Miglerino, is that in our sheet?
Yes, that information is contained in the sheet. I can look it up quick.
Okay, I'll find it. Thank you. I apologize.
So I show Terramar's current capacity just over 1,000 students, 1,039.
1,030?
1039.
1039.
That's the SFB capacity, and this is my typical disclaimer. Remember, the SFB capacity is determined by just a formula. We also have what we consider as a classroom capacity number as well.
Okay, and thank you for making that clarification, and I would prefer to have the classroom capacity number, since that's, if you have that available, because that's the number that would be really viable for students as opposed to teaching them in the hallways.
Apologize, I just wanted to confirm the number. So for classroom capacity, I have 1,100 students. So it's actually greater than the SFB
Well,
capacity.
that's different than normal.
Yeah, I'm fearful that that might include the two portables, because the report I pulled up is a little dated, but I don't see my note including that, so I think it's 1,100 with the current configuration.
And if we had two portables, how much would two portables, what's the capacity in two portables?
So in the classroom capacity calculation, we use an average of 24, but we can get more than 24, but we just take 24 over all of the classrooms. So it would add 48 more students to the capacity.
Or if this report is over reporting the number, it would reduce it. So it's about 1,039-ish. Okay. Did you have questions, Mrs. Paperman? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, my question is, I'm just wondering, because I know, like, reading, they have options, laid out options for the board to see, and I also find it interesting the parents had their own options. So my question is, was there collaboration, with the parents, or was there a committee in coming with these options?
President O'Brien, Ms. Paperman, yeah, so the process included us holding two public meetings to gather input, and then we solicited input through a dedicated email address. I think what's worth noting is many of the Ala Revita parents claim they didn't receive the notice that we sent to them, which is unfortunate. So we got further along in the process without them being included early in the process. But yes, it was a collaboration to develop. That's why we ended up with the four options that we're showing here.
Okay, because that would be a concern, because as a board, that one of the things that we look at, is building community, building relationship with the community. And anything that we're going to be doing as a district, we work together as a team, because this comes down to of our children.
Okay. Mr. Miglerino, sorry, do you have a question? Go ahead, Mrs. Ordway.
Okay, so Terramar is pre-K 8, correct? If we were, and I don't want to make your head spin, Jim, if we were to decide that we wanted to grandfather in present students, the prediction for Terramar to be overcrowded, you said was 3 years? So, yeah, that would create more problems, I guess, but, and then that would not help out. So tell me what the complications of that would be, or if it would even address what we're trying to address.
President O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, I think the complication with that would be related to the expectation of the Alavita parents. When I met with them, the request was that we continue to provide transportation to them if they were to be grandfathered to the school. That would mean, and we have not, the boundary decision will help us make other decisions related and around Elementary 32, as we talked about at the last meeting, but we don't know when the start time of the school is, for example, but we could end up running 2 buses in Alavita, one to go to Terramar and one to go to Las Brisas if we were to grandfather them and provide transportation. But that new statute that I referenced earlier does give them the ability to continue to attend Terramar if capacity is available, but it does not automatically grant them transportation without the board acting upon that fashion.
Okay, thank you.
So the complication is probably not more capacity for grandfathering, it's the transportation component.
And we have a hard enough time getting bus drivers now, so it's logistics. Thank you.
Did you have a question, Mrs. Reed?
And I'm sorry, I know that I asked this question last board meeting, and I'm trying to look at Google Maps to see the other school site that we currently have is where?
President O'Brien, Ms. Reed, the other school site is in the Sonora Mountain Ranch community, and let me flip back to this map. So it's, just in general sense, it's right above it's the triangle above the Alavita neighborhood, and it's right above the wording for Copper Creek designating that area. As that's their K-6 designated school.
All right. So I pulled up a different map for her to see better where that school site is. Or right here. Ish, yeah. That one is just southwest of the canal area.
It is, and in our discussions with the folks that are doing some of the planning for Biscuit Flats, and Biscuit Flats is the area just on the north side of the CAP canal. They're planning on doing a crossing of that canal at the 51st Avenue alignment and at the 67th Avenue alignment, which is essentially Pyramid Peak Parkway. So as that is planned and additional residential homes are considered, then it is likely that we might have to consider building the Sonora Mountain Ranch school site sometime in the future. But I think that's outside of our 5-year planning window currently with the information we know today.
Do you know how much of the Alora Vita community has been built out?
President O'Brien, I didn't get a count, and this question was asked last time. So if you just base it on the number of students, we are projecting full build-out within the next 5 years, so 102 students and 250 expected, so about 30%.
About 30%?
Yeah, based on the student numbers, yes.
And when, depending on what we decide to, when the 7-8 is added to elementary 32, will we have to have a rediscussion, or will the board have to rediscuss boundaries at all? Or will those students just move?
President O'Brien, unfortunately, that will require boundaries, and again, statutorily, the board, has the authority to make that change. So if we're going to add the 7th and 8th grade to elementary 32, then at least that boundary would change for that particular school, but it could affect other schools as well.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Reed?
So Mrs. Marshall sent us an email on November 10th, which has the build out of the 2,000 homes for Alora Vita. There's a picture of it. And if you compare it to what's on Google, you can see where the additional will be built.
Are there any more questions or discussions or thoughts? Mrs. Ordway?
The thought is, it reminds me of the community of Anthem when we built the schools there, the people that had to go across the highway to Canyon Springs, that were inside of Anthem and were closer to Anthem Elementary, but ended up going across the road. It's a hard thing to make boundary changes, and I would say that whatever anyone votes, it's with the information they have, making it in the best interest that they have gotten the information and have researched. So when one neighborhood is going to be unhappy, another neighborhood's going to be happy, it's just not an easy thing to do boundaries. Just pointing that out, but we're here doing it. We're listening to the information. We've read all the emails, as far as I know. I'm sure we've all read them. So I don't know how much more conversation there is. Maybe we should just call for the vote and be done.
Mrs. Reed?
Personally, what I would like to see happen, and I'd be happy to make a motion if there's entertainment of that idea, is I would like to leave Alora Vita at Terramar, and like to leave, what are we calling it, Eagle Preserve?
Yes, ma'am, Eagle Preserve.
There for Terramar too. I think just leave it as it is. My assumption is that 5 years ago, we didn't think that we were going to be building Union Park or Elementary 32. I think that in 5 years, with the projected growth in that area, that we'll need another school site. And I would hate to change boundaries twice within 5 years. That's just my personal view of where I think the trajectory is headed in that area. I think, personally, looking at boundaries, I think it's absurd that Sonora Mountain Ranch has to drive to Copper Creek. To me, that's the big elephant in the room too. That, I mean, it just, it seems like previous boards chose, and this is the same thing that happened when we were doing boundaries 2 years ago. They chose a path of least resistance in kind of patchworking, different communities as they were built to fill schools. But even looking at our boundaries here, it doesn't go in line with what we say we believe to be true when we're redrawing boundaries. That's just my observation. Again, I don't think that that we want to rip all of it apart and redo all of the boundaries on the west side of our district. But it just, the way that their patchwork doesn't make any sense to me. So that's my thought is, to be able, if we had portables at Terramar, and if we can make some investments and put portables there again until we have a better idea of what's going to happen just north of us. I believe that Las Brisas that magnet program is going to pull a lot of kids for Renaissance. I'm not worried about the population there. I think that that Mara and Adam have a really great plan, and everything that Adam has touched so far has turned to gold with his gifted community. I think he will continue to do that again at Las Brisas.
Mrs. Fisher?
I 100% agree with Ms. Reed. Including the Copper Creek jump, which I was just not touching that elephant in the room. But I do, just everything that I've seen, even driving up through what's being built and how fast it's going up, I do believe we're going to have to be making a decision again within the next couple of years. And I would really hate to see the kids be puddle jumped from school to school to school. There may be some parents that do choose to open enroll to Las Brisas because of the new programs. We may snag some, especially from Bayer and some of those other more southern charters, or I do know several homeschool groups in the area. So I also am not afraid of the enrollment in Las Brisas. I do believe it'll pull forward. It's also a developing neighborhood to the east, and there's a lot of new homes going in there as well. Whether or not they'll have kids, I don't know. They seem to be older communities, but I just think it would be irresponsible for us to just make this decision right now. I would like to see the students from both those neighborhoods remain at Terramar. If need be, we look into the portable. Maybe as we watch it, if it goes up, we plan that. And then I think we're going to be planning another school sooner than I would like anyways, but that's my take on it.
Yes, Mrs. Paperman?
I also agree with Ms. Fisher and Ms. Reed. One of the things that we should take into consideration, 2021, 2022 is a difficult year with a lot of stress, mental health, and even affecting our teachers, our students, and our community. So in my heart, I truly believe that this is not a time to make major changes and disrupt the education of our kids. Right now, we need to unite together and stay strong together and get through this year.
Okay. Before we have a motion or a vote or whatever we're going to do, if you just give me one.
Get some clarification.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So
Mrs. Ordway.
we want to make a motion that says leave everything the same because we don't want to make boundary changes now, correct? And then we want to wait until Terramar. What are you changing it to?
I think the proposal, and Mrs. Reed could certainly correct me if she like, is that the new elementary boundaries would be as proposed and for elementary number 32, and that Alora Vita would remain in Terramar. Is that my understanding to the people on the three of me? Yes, I will. Mrs. Taylor's written a motion to see if it is acceptable, although it's not one officially been made, but
Yes, what Mrs. Taylor,
I'm sorry, what, Dr. Finch?
Okay, could you just tell me what it is that we're proposing now to change it to?
Mrs. Reed, would you like to read your motion?
that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve new elementary boundaries to include elementary number 32 with the exception of keeping Elora Vita and Eagle Preserve communities in the Terramar boundary area.
Okay, so we're not moving anyone anywhere, correct, at this moment in time? Who are we moving? Which areas are going to be displaced?
Mr. Miglerino?
To this motion?
President O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, the entire Stetson Valley neighborhood needs to be reassigned to Elementary 32. They're currently assigned to Las Brisas. And the Eagle Cove community, which is on the west side of where the school is being built, is currently designated for Stetson Hills, and so it is being reassigned to the new elementary. So I think what was read would be accurate to say that you're accepting whether you want to use the option or not. I think we might be on option F at this point. I haven't kept track, but if you want to say option 3D, in which, with the exception being Alora Vita to remain at Terramar, that would suffice.
So although this will continue it down the road, these communities had no idea that this was going to come up because there was nothing they could read in advance to come in. So how is this?
That's actually not accurate because this proposal is all we're doing is making them part of 32, which was always part of the plan. What has been up for discussion or, yes, up for discussion has been the Alora Vita community and what I'm going to call the Eagle Preserve community as we have. So
yeah, because
these two communities, as Mr. Miglerino, and please feel free to correct me at any time, said that during the community meeting, we did have attendees from what we're naming the Eagle Preserve community did attend, where the Alora Vita community members that are here this evening said that they didn't receive their notice, so they weren't part of those initial discussions, which is why we tabled it and came here tonight. So the Stetson Hills community and the Las Brisas, is that the others? Is that, sorry, I apologize, Mr. Miglerino. I thought I had it all. Yes, so Stetson Valley that was assigned to Las Brisas would be reassigned to 32. So those folks knew it, and it's that part is not changing. The part that I hear Mrs. Reed and so the other Mrs. Fisher and Mrs. Paperman proposing is that we leave the other two at Terramar where they are currently attending.
President O'Brien, that's correct. And if you just approve 3D with the change that Alora Vita remains at Terramar, I think everybody has been properly noticed, regardless what change you make. I mean,
so it's, thank you. It's option. So could you, because it's not in Sheila, what I would say is it would be best to write the proposal or the motion just that the board, because that wasn't 3D as we are going to potentially vote on is not what the administration recommended. So 3D, to approve option 3D, leaving Alora Vita in Terramar or at Terramar, correct?
correct.
Finally got it right. Only took me 4 or 5 times. Eagle, you don't have to worry about Eagle Preserve because they were left at Terramar already in the option to 3D. And now Dr. Finch would like to make a comment.
This proposal is built on a premise that is incorrect. And that premise is that we will be able to get a portable. I can tell you right now, we're not going to be able to get a portable from permission to put a portable at Happy Valley. That road is currently busy. It's not going, they're not going to give us permission. So I guess what I'm asking you is, it is kicking the can down the road, which is fine. There will be consequences, but they might not be immediate. My premise to you, or my thought to you, is that I might be back.
So
Because
I hear
it's
you.
not, if it's going to be overcrowded, it's when and at what pace.
And I guess we could add to that motion that it be, that the students, okay, sorry. Yes, that it be on the thought, I can't predicate it, I'm not sure that's, sorry, my words are escaping me right now, but it be predicated on getting the permit contingent, thank you, Mrs. Fisher, being contingent upon Peoria issuing the permit that would allow us to have a portable there, or 2 portables, or whatever.
We'd also have to be able to get the portables.
Correct.
You know, we'd have to procure them too.
Yes, Mrs. Fisher.
The need for the portables is not now. It's a future need. It may be 2 years down the road that need is even something that occurs. It could be 3 years down the road. It could be
Yes.
at a time when we're already doing it. So I would hate to have it be contingent on our ability to get one now that we don't need now.
I don't know that we need the portable now, but I'm not sure how Peoria's permitting process works, but if you get a permit now and you can't use it if you don't need to use it for a year or two, do those have an expiration date?
Absolutely.
Mr. Miglerino?
President O'Brien, permits are normally good for,
1 year.
they will typically allow schools to renew them, but they're only valid for 1 year. So the renewal process is usually just a monetary arrangement that has to be worked out with them. But
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, what's the monetary process?
just to renew it beyond.
Is a monetary process, got it,
Yeah.
renewal.
Yeah, I don't think you have to change your motion, but I think it just needs to be on the record that I might have to come back if I strike out with Peoria. It's not if, it's when I'm going to strike out. with
Right,
them.
and it's not right now, it could be next year.
It
could
might take a
be-
year to even get in the door there. I mean, who knows?
Correct, yes, I would imagine Peoria is very busy with all of their development, and it would be a process that
We're
needs
having all
to
kinds
be.
of trouble with permits right now with our new process, our new building. It's the pandemic has slowed everything down.
Yes, sir, it has, the Great Resignation has hit, and the Great Development in our cities has hit. Okay, so Mrs. Fisher, do you officially want to make your motion?
Ms. Reed?
I'm sorry,
do you want me
Mrs.
to
Reed, do you want to officially make your motion? I apologize.
Yes, I officially would like to make my motion. Do I need to read it?
Yes, you need to read it.
Okay. So I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve new elementary boundaries to include elementary number 32 with the exception of keeping Elora Vita and Eagle Preserve Community Terramar boundary area.
Second.
No, we need to refresh, I think. I apologize.
And I got booted out, so.
Yeah, mine didn't go away.
Ooh, refreshing was a bad idea.
There it is. Nope, it came up the same way. So, okay, well, while they're doing that, I'm going to go back to the comment I was going to make and say that I do want to say that going through boundary changes is it is difficult, as Mrs. Ordway pointed out back on what was going on in Anthem. My children went to school during a boundary change. Mr. Miglerino's done a lot of work on boundaries, and his integrity is impeccable. He looks at the data and the facts and the information and proposes a recommendation that he thinks is best for the district based on the numbers. I've long said that boundary changes are business decisions, and they're difficult business decisions because there are children and families impacted. So I want to thank Mr. Miglerino for all the work he did on this one, and know that you provided the best recommendation possible based on the information you had, and I know that everybody up here has considered that. But thank you for all the work you've done and answering all of our questions and working with the community members to get us to here. This isn't fun as long as Deer Valley is growing, and we go through growth spurts, and we're going to continue to go through them. It's going to be difficult and emotional and hard work, and somebody gets impacted. So I thank everybody for being respectful and polite. But this is what we do up here is. Okay. All right. So thank you, Mr. Miglerino. Mrs. Reed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Miglerino. Okay. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation, option 3D, to approve new elementary boundaries to include elementary number 32, with the exception of keeping Elora Vita community in the boundary area.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yes, we did.
So can you move to amend the motion to be this? To say, I move to amend.
I move to amend the original motion to be the new 3A. Approval.
3D. No, that's
Oh,
just our
3D.
3D with the exception of.
Exception to keep Elora Vita community in the Terramar boundary area.
Okay. And do we have a second for the amendment? Okay. So our first, thank you for keeping us legit. We have to wait for Mrs. Taylor to catch up because we need the amendment. Mrs. Fisher? Okay, so all those in favor of amending the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All. Okay. All right, so we now voted to amend the motion to approve 3D with the exception of leaving the Elora Vita community to remain at Terramar. All those in favor of approving the motion as amended, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Future meetings, meeting dates and events have been posted. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
At 7:39. I'm
Second.
sorry, what? It hasn't populated for some of them. So I have a motion to adjourn at 7:39. I have a second by Mrs. Reed. All those in favor, please
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion to adjourn is passed. We're adjourned.